I've got everyone. Hi, good morning. Hi, Ben.
Good to see you.
Oh, Eric Grimes.
Christine.
All right. Chris Gann. Oh, my gosh. Oliver.
I didn't come.
Wow.
He's gonna wear
Oh, my gosh. He's Eric's putting on everything.
I am so jealous. Dry cleaned.
It'd be more last weekend. Of course it is.
That's funny. That's
Always ready.
right.
I didn't bring out the Exeter varsity jacket today, but I'm glad Eric did. That's freaking awesome.
Right.
That's a flex.
Bring it out.
He didn't show up with it, but it was readily available.
I love that. So here we go. Let's get this rolling.
Right.
Cool.
We all just watched Vivek pull his slippers on. I think he literally just rolled out of bed.
Dude.
Am
Did
I
you
right?
see that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're doing great.
Actually, I did just wake up and I was up till 2. I'll tell you why. I was up till 2. Okay, this is the official kickoff. Welcome to the Class of 92 podcast and our second ever live stream. Also starring Beth Whitten and Tim Farnham, who are the special guests of our very first live stream on Valentine's Day, which they did from Nicaragua, which was incredible and amazing in multiple ways. The fact that they did it from their hotel room in Nicaragua, it blew me away that something like this could happen on a whim from their vacation in Nicaragua from just like a random hotel. And when that happened and we had such a good time, the tech worked, live streaming totally worked. They told their entire love story of Valentine's Day. It was really fun to get that from you. We have another Exeter couple to tell us their story, at least part of it, I hope, Karen and Joe. And so during that conversation, they talked about Coach Nekton and how they had visited you in North Carolina, Coach. And so much love exuded from their voices in that. It was very palpable to me. Of course, I remember you. Everybody remembers you. So, I thought, let me just reach out to Coach Nekton and say, hey, are you around? Do you want to like come meet up and talk? And then I'm like, who else do I know? I'm like, well, there's Grimes. I don't know. Like, I'm not a swimmer. Let me call Tim and Tim will figure this out, which he did. So Tim, thank you so much. You're the band. It's so awesome to work with you on this fun little project. And so you guys know I've been doing this for a while. And the reason I was up till 2 a.m. California time is because I was just posting the Matt Fates episode, which is like 14 gigs of video that took hours to download and then re-upload. So I was like up till 2
gigs
doing
of Matt Fates is a lot of Matt Fates.
Matt Fates. Matt, if you are listening, Matt Fates, you're like 14 gigs of video. Yes, long. But actually, it was awesome, and he and I had a great conversation. It's funny because I always feel like there's some agenda I have or story arc in mind, and you start in one place and you end in another, and that's what happened with him. And so who knows what this will be all like. So maybe, Tim, you can just take it over from here as our official MC and kick it off and then get us going.
I won't do too much other than just start asking questions of Coach. But before that, I just want to say it is so amazing to see all of you all. Some we've seen more frequently than others, but this is just amazing. And I don't think it would be possible if we weren't talking to Coach. Coach, as Vivek and I have mentioned to you as we've been talking to set this up, there is, you are the custodian of a tremendous amount of water polo swimming and diving history that occurred at Exeter, a lot of which probably most of us don't have any clue about. I know you were gracious enough to share a lot of stories with me and Beth when we visited you, and I know others have visited you as well. But I think, just to kick things off, it would be lovely to hear how you brought water polo to Exeter and how you built a team that was able to perform at a high level for many years. And if that's all right, we'd love to just there. And before we get too much farther down the road, if anyone has a question, please jump in. I am not, I can be the MC and I never have trouble coming up with something to say, but I don't want anything here. So if someone else has a question.
Sorry about that.
He's not at a loss for words.
No. I'll do my best. But let's just kick it off with that, Coach. Please tell us how you polo to Exeter.
Well, real quick, I started at Exeter in 63, and then in 78 completed the pool that you guys were competing in, and I had two really good friends. One gentleman at MIT and another one at Brown University, and we were sending swimmers to them, and they realized that we had a pool that we could do water polo, and they said no one here on the East Coast has water polo in the high schools or anything. You got to start a water polo program and get that going because the West Coast kids don't want to come to the East Coast. They want to stay where water polo is. So that basically was the beginning. I said I don't know anything, and what can we do? So we had our little. They said I can remember Ed Reed at Brown who said to me, "What you should do is get some of your swimmers, find some basketball players or hockey players who are good in the sport, and they can stay afloat. They can swim around. They don't have to be great swimmers, but they'll understand the game." So I would go on the weekends. I would take one of the vans and stuff it, maybe two vans, and someone would help me. And we'd go to either MIT or Brown, and we would meet with their teams. And the coaches there would stand on the deck with me. My kids would be in the water with the Brown or MIT kids, and he'd go through drills, and it'd be a one-on-one. So there was a college student helping one of my students to get underway, and that basically was it. We did our little traveling roadshow that we did, and then I pushed to get water polo started at Exeter as a sport. I had been ensconced in soccer for 7 years, and had really it was hard to break away from that, but I had to do it. So, anyway, they said, "Oh, AD said, okay, go ahead and start the program." So that's what we did. Then it became obvious that the only people I could play was Brown and MIT underlings, their freshmen or whatever they had as part of their program, and we would play against those guys. And then on Sundays, I would have my traveling road show, and we take a bunch of the guys who were playing water polo for me, and we went to um, Northfield on Herman, Deerfield, Andover, Williston. We went to all those schools and put on a little bit of a show about what the sport was. Sort of the same thing that MIT and Brown had done for me. I was doing with these other schools, and they finally started. In fact, we even helped start the programs at Bowdoin, Trinity, Northeastern. I can't remember now, but that's basically the start of water polo. And then we started women's water polo. I started women's water polo in 72, 73. 72 probably. Started girls water polo, and that took off like wildfire. So there we are.
That is absolutely astonishing to hear. To start, I guess that's a great example of how you start at the grassroots level and build it up and around.
Well, fortunately, I had a couple of friends that were out on the West Coast that I became very strong with once I was involved with U.S. water polo. I got involved with it, but they were friends of mine, and they helped me from their standpoint as best they could. But basically, it's homegrown in terms of New England and MIT and Brown coaches, along with myself, and then everyone sort of kick-started and got things going.
Coach, what got you interested in water polo to begin? How did you learn the sport?
You just heard it. I'm serious. That's what I said to the two coaches that were helping me, encouraged me. I said, I don't know anything. And they said, okay, we'll teach you on the deck, and we'll have our team teach the kids in the water. And that's basically where I started my water polo. I had no clue whatsoever.
Have you ever played yourself?
No, not at all. No. As a matter of fact, I only started my swimming career in college. I had done 4 years of wrestling in high school and loved it. It was dedicated to it. And I actually selected Springfield out of the schools that were available with physical education, I went to Springfield because they had such a good wrestling program in the 50s. The coach scared me off with weight loss threats and that, and I had done that all through high school and 4 years, and I couldn't stand weight losing and that sort of thing. So my dad my dad forced me to do something, and I played football because my wrestling coach told me to, and I couldn't even make the second team, I don't think. And he said, "You're gonna run track," and I couldn't. I always make the joke that if I did track in college, the managers could probably run the 800 faster than I can. So that my dad said, "Well, you have to do something," and he said, "You were a lifeguard. Why don't you try swimming?" And I said, "Geez, they're having a New England championship team. I couldn't do that anyway." Rest is history. I tried it, and there we go.
When did you decide to become a coach?
Oh, I pretty much wanted to coach and uh, teach when I was in high school. My last 2 years, and whatever. My dad and my grandfather, his dad, were heavy duty lawyers, and they kept pushing me to go into law. And my mom was secretary to the principal in the high school, and so she had all these. Back then, there were these occupational tests that you'd take, and so she'd push me through one, hoping that it would say, "Oh, you should go into law." And I take that, and no, it didn't say that. It said education. And then I take another. My mom would get me into another one, hoping that maybe that would. After two or three of them, it was a no deal. Law was not going to be in my itinerary. So I I sort of enjoyed sports, obviously, and that's so I decided that's what I wanted to do, and went to Springfield, and that's a funny story there because I swam all 4 years and had a good career, but um, I really wanted to. I really wanted to teach at the college and coach at the college level. That was my goal. So I went to. I just I didn't want full time physical education. That was not in my interest at all. And so I went to American International College for 1 year of graduate work in psychology and loved that. But I didn't like where it was going when I talked to advisors at the school. And so I went back to Springfield for 2 more years of graduate work in the anatomical sciences, anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, those things that I thought, okay, those would be fun things to teach and do some coaching on the side. So that that's sort of how I evolved. And then I got out of graduate work, and my swimming coach at Springfield said there weren't many college jobs open at that point. There weren't a plethora of them. So he told me, "Well, I know the athletic director and swimming coach at Exeter. You should go there." The swimming coach became the athletic director. They need a swimming coach. I said, "I don't want New England. I don't want high school. I don't want full time physical education. I, what else?" And my idea of a private school was coming out of New York City. My high school years said it was I just sort of looked at private schools as places for rich kids or delinquents. Basically, I had no clue. I had no clue what was about. And so I took the job because Charlie Sylvia told me to do it. I did what he said. And I retired from my stepping stone. He said it'd be a great stepping stone into Ivy League coaching and teaching. Well, there you go. So you all had to suffer all my decision not to go
So,
that
Coach, that's
direction.
what's next. Coach
What's
is
that?
next.
What's
Yeah,
next?
College coaching.
coach
Yes.
today. You're coming out of retirement to coach college, yeah?
I don't. No, I don't think so. There's a fun, because I swam, master swimming even when I was at Exeter, right up until 1983, 84. I had still was competing in master swimming. And anyway, 10 years ago, I had my knees replaced, and I had not been near a pool other than my coaching, not doing anything. And I can remember the physical therapist saying, okay, tomorrow, this is after a couple of meetings with him, say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to meet you in the pool. And I shook my head. I said, no. The therapist said, well, we've got to. I said, hey, you don't understand. I'm taking a time out from the pool for myself, for my body. Anyway, it's just because I'd go in there and I'd try to just recreational swim, and I started right away. Would start looking at the pace clock and okay, there are some 50s. Let's do some 50s or some backstroke or whatever, and I just couldn't stay away. My head was too competitive with that silly clock on the wall and entering the pool. That's what I had to do. I had to either coach it or swim it.
So coach, what were your events? What did you swim?
In college or in masters? Okay. College, I was primarily distance freestyler. Um, in those days, folks, it was the 440 and the 220 matched the track and field. And then what they would do in a 25-yard pool, they would put a finish line across where the 200 ended or where the 440 ended because it wasn't an even number. And particularly it was okay if we were in a 20-yard pool, which a couple of schools had. In fact, that's what I trained in at Springfield. I trained in a 20-yard, 4-lane, 20-yard pool. So distance events primarily. I dabbled in the other strokes just for fun because my swimming coach felt that you should do some other strokes as part of your deal. So that sort of carried over to my coaching, as you probably remember. I like guys to try other things. But yeah, and then when it got into the masters swimming, then I tried everything. Yeah, I tried everything. And at the um, at the nationals, masters nationals in my age group, I took a first in the breaststroke, which was I didn't think I entered that at the last minute, and I wasn't going to do it. Um, a second in second in the 1650, a third in the 500, a fourth in the 200 IM, and a fifth in the 100 back.
Why are none of us surprised? That's amazing.
Just so much fun. Yeah, I just love the sport, and I love training for it. I love everything about it. And by the way, read Katie Ledecky's book that's come out lately. Read it. You got to read it. I'm just finished chapter 2, and it's great. What insight and fun! Really, you're gonna like it. Just a few drops or something like that. Katie Ledecky.
Incredible.
But it's really neat because I still follow the swimming as best I can. We have direct TV, and I have it programmed so if at 3 o'clock in the morning they show the NC2As, it's going to record it. So anything that is possible, I get it. So I just watched the first tier episode of sort of the run up to the World Championships this summer. So there's some great swimming, and they were unbelievable.
Wow.
Another question?
Yeah. So I had a follow-up question, unless someone else has something they'd like to jump in with. One of the things that you touched on just now about your own swimming was that it was done at a high level. Thinking back to how you started the water polo program, and this will be a water polo question, the water polo program at Exeter and how you helped build it in New England. Can you talk about how the excellence of bear polo sort of came to be? I know that Exeter probably had teams that were good some years and not so good other years, et cetera. But can you talk about the process of building a high quality team, the components that go into that, and then how you successfully coach and manage transitions from year to year?
Well, I think the beginning was obviously no one else had it. We did. I had some good help learning how to coach the sport, so that made it pretty easy to sort of be ahead of other people. Once some of the schools got their programs going. It became much more competitive, and it was a little bit harder to do that. Probably, I guess, biggest part was the help I got from college coaches is the biggest help, and then and I went to the national convention in 1983 or 84, 83, and out in Indianapolis. I was sitting there, and they were saying they're looking for junior national coaching positions. And you know, really, okay, maybe so. Actually, before that, I should almost forgot. Before that, was fortunate enough to someone else, guy named Charlie Bitzer, was a very, very good water polo player in the early '70s. Very good, and uh, Ed Reed at Brown suggested that I take him to a tryout camp for junior nationals, a junior national tryout camp that they were doing in Colorado, Olympic Training Center there. He lived in Pennsylvania, but he was at Exeter. So the tryouts were down at Fordham University. Yeah, I can't remember now. Anyway, he couldn't get down there, so I took him down there, and I was sitting there watching these tryouts go. Basically, they were each zone, 10 zones, were going to send their top 7 players, 10 players, I can't remember that either, to the national training camp for a week and a half in Colorado. So I was there supporting him, Charlie, to make that camp, and they said, okay, anyone trying out for a coaching position at the did you ever hear about the what do they call it? The National Olympic Sports Festival. There you go. National Sports Festival in the summers, and they did it in the off year of the Olympics. Each zone would send their players to it, and the national team cut their team into 7 and sent national team players to each zone. So they were trying to spread the word of water polo. So anyway, they were going to have that, and I was sitting there, and I said, might as well go along and see this is all about. So I just tagged along with these other guys that were there, obviously for that specific thing to try out. And then all of a sudden, I found that I got one of the 2 positions to go to Colorado with whoever from zone 1. I was in zone 1 up in New England, so I got to go out there. That sort of put me into sort of a group of coaching opportunities that happened. So it's just so much of what's happened to me is being at the right place at the right time, not understanding but taking advantage of it and jumping into it, and then I went from there. The same thing as I started to tell you before the summer stuff. I went to Indianapolis, and they were having positions, and people encouraged me to put my name in, and there I was at the hotel. I was on the manager's typewriter trying to type my resume to get into the committee, the selection committee, and I'm calling Kathy and say, what did I forget here? What do I do next? Then all of a sudden, there I was out at the Olympic Training Center, but I also then further than that got a chance to be on the Olympic training staff or coaching staff. So I worked mainly with the junior national team, which almost every one of them moved to the national team. They were all select kids from mainly California and some other places, but it gave me a chance to spend 9 years traveling all over the world and at big major championships and stuff. So there's the evolution of my
How
water
did
polo.
the type of students and athletes evolve over time? So I imagine when you started, you were teaching kids water polo that had never been in the pool before, perhaps, or that were swimmers or hockey players years, you said.
Yep.
And by the time you left, I imagine there were kids that have been playing since they were 10 years old. These days, you can't really get into water polo if you don't start at 10 or 12 years old, at least in California. So how did the kids evolve over time in terms of how you taught them the game of water polo?
Well, at the beginning stages when I was doing that, a larger number of the kids were basketball players because they really had a knack for the game and what we were doing. So that was an easy evolution for them. It was just a matter of me making sure that they could swim well enough to go. Their ball handling skills were really good, although they would make that two-hand touch at the beginning, of their career too many times. But they ended up being all New England, that kind of selection because they got into it pretty easily. Is that Oliver? Does that answer your question? They did well.
I would say a large part of doing well is because of you. I remember your enthusiasm and just for the sport and for seeing people succeed as one of the main sort of driving factors for why I loved playing water polo. I mean, it's an incredibly interesting and sport in and of itself, but having an enthusiastic, kind, and knowledgeable coach makes a huge difference. And this is a good sort of segue to a question that we have from the audience, from Chris, from your sister, who has some really good memories of playing on the men's water polo team as a senior with Chris as a prep. The question really is, how do you hope your former players, and the question is about water polo players, but swimming is just as applicable to this. How do you hope your former athletes remember their time either playing polo or swimming for you, and what do you want people to take from those experiences outside of the pool into their lives?
You're doing it right now. What more can I say? If all you people that are listening to this and people that aren't on the screen, something happened, and I'm glad about that you have that enthusiasm and you have that in your memory. You draw that on that occasionally when something happens, you see some water polo swimming on the TV or something, and say, well, yeah, Exeter and that kind of thing. I always liked sports. I enjoyed teaching and coaching. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed it, particularly when I started at Exeter and my very first tour of duty, so to speak. But there were a couple times that people would say to me, "Oh, are you going to follow your desire to go to college?" Oh, I'd look around and see if there was, and Exeter was so much fun because of people like you. You guys are exactly what I was dealing with in the '60s, the '70s, the '80s, and the '90s. That kind of enthusiasm and support and dedication just Exeter treated me well and allowed me to do so many things that when I think about it, I encourage them to to do something with a pool, and then started girls swimming and started girls water polo, and that's because the enthusiasm was there with the male contingent, and it spread to the female contingent, and that just was so much fun to do. I look at women's swimming, and I started that girls swimming team in '70, and it grew like wildfire. We had so many girls in the pool. It was dangerous. I went to the AD and said in '72, went to him and said, schools committed themselves. I can't coach both girls and boys swimming and diving because that's what it was basically four different sports, in terms of male, female, and that. And he said, "Oh, I know someone's went to Penn State and had degree in physical education. She swam there and that kind of thing." I said, "Well, you should interview her and see what, but start looking because you got to do that." So, and that part is all history too.
Did you?
As I think most of you know, or not.
Let's hear it. What's that all
I
about?
was just going to ask, did you ever come close to leaving? Did you ever come close to leaving Exeter for any reason?
No, just I had so much fun at Exeter, and they treated me so well and allowed me to do so many things. It was always exciting. Something was happening. You know, girls coming into the school, water polo, girls swimming, water polo, and that, and then being able to travel. And the school allowed me to take time off that they didn't log it in as, my sabbaticals or something like that. Yes, I did try to do around one or two, but they basically supported me and said, "You go do it. We want you to do that." I couldn't see myself anywhere else doing that. And then I also realized that I enjoyed the water polo, the swimming, the diving, and track and field. I enjoyed those so much that I realized that I was going to have to do that full time. I can remember Carl Samuelson was the coach at Williams College, and I can remember talking to him, in the '70s someplace, and saying, "I'm looking at Giles. What do you think? Where do where should I go?" Carl Samuelson was my freshman swimming coach at Springfield College, and I revered him, and I still contact him, even though he was 92 years old. But he's a great human being. I just remember him saying, um, so he says, "Okay, I see why you're looking at other jobs. You want to do swimming year round. You don't want to do any other sports." And he says, "And you want to try it. You think that I love selling my soul to try to get some kid to come to Williams College. That's what you want to do. You want to try to coerce people to come there, and that in order to have a good program, that's what you're gonna have to do all that recruiting. You really want to do that?" I said, "Sam, thanks." He solidified it for me, and that was the end of that. Carl was a good human being. It's great, and of course he was a great in terms of he was a graduate student when I was a freshman. One of the things he did, to earn his way at graduate school at Springfield was to be a swim coach and freshman swim coach. So I had him as an influence in my first year. And then he created, along with a guy named Bill Yorzak, created that intensity and desire to do more with the swimming.
Well, Coach
Can you talk
Nekton,
about when they named the pool after you and what that experience was like?
Oh my gosh. I never knew I fought for them to renew the pool because we had a shallow end for um, the water polo goalie. And it just, the level of the program was such that it just didn't make sense. If we were going to host the New England Championships, that we should have a shallow end pool, and we should go the route. And um, I guess I was fortunate enough to uh, people listened to me and that kind of thing, and sort of the thing grew, and I was so taken back because I can remember the principal said to me, I want you to know that this is just before it was completed," and he said, "I want you to know that a number of swimmers have stepped up and are supporting the renovation of the pool, and we want to name it after you." So that was, yeah, I started crying. To be honest with you, I started crying. Yes. Yeah,
If they hadn't named it
it's a
after
hell of
you,
a
I
lot.
think there would have been a revolt.
Coach, it's Karen and Joe here. But I would just say that you probably you didn't have to sell your soul because you gave your soul. As soon as we got to campus, you took care of all comers. And
Oh, thank you.
I remember that you were a lifeline when I was recovering from 2 very major shoulder surgeries. And you used to tell me that same line about getting in the pool and turning my head off and just letting my body do the work. And to this day, I still use that advice. And I didn't know that it was rooted in your own.
Yeah. Oh, oh boy. Yeah. It just, I can't believe, during my 4 years at Springfield and started the swimming, I couldn't believe the fever that I got. The swimming fever. Charlie Sylvia was a remarkable coach. He's one of the guys that actually had the most to do with the evolution of the butterfly. And in 1956, Bill Yorzik went to the Olympics, and he was a Springfield College graduate, and he broke. I mean, he set a new standard in terms of the alternate breathing and a whole bunch of things in terms of evolution of the dolphin kick. And he is a swimmer, and Coach Sylvia is the coach. Were there as one of the coaching staff, and they went and Bill demolished the 200-meter butterfly record and that kind of thing. And then he came back, and he and this Carl Samuelson were graduate students in helping me out as as a total neophyte in the swimming world. And they had such an impact on me. Here's a gold medal winner, world champion, world record holder, and he's teaching me how to do a turn. I didn't know how to. I had to learn how to do an open turn, grab and go submerge and go. That's what I had to learn at that point. So good stuff, good stories, but they're really funny.
Hey, Coach.
And a 20-yard
yeah.
pool, 20-yard.
Hey, Coach. It's Monty Engel, and it's been way too long. It's great to see you. I just want to say that I think about you all the time. Especially with
Wow.
my I have a son who's a basketball player. I tried to get him into polo. Maybe it's not too late. But I think about you, especially like in his athletic endeavors. I see all these different kinds of coaches, and I'm sure we've all had different kinds of coaches since we were with you. I got to tell you, like, your coaching style was like amazing for certainly for me, and part of it was that you were never a yeller. You always sort of, like, I think, appealed to our better sides, and I kind of wondered, like, I have to remember that the Greenwich coach, Terry something, I'll never forget, this guy was like, was insane. I mean, just like, he was yelling at his players all the time, and I was like so glad that I played for you. But I wondered, like, and I sort of think about it in parenting terms as well. Like, is your style like a style you developed, or is it just innate? You're just not a yeller. You're like a cajoler and a talker and a persuader, or how did it come to you?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I guess I didn't. The wrestling coach that I had in high school was a yeller screamer, and the potential college coach was going to be sort of the same type. So that was sort of a negative aspect to it. Then the Charlie Sylvia, and then the two guys that were graduate students and got me in the freshman swimming team were they were low key guys and that sort of thing. And I just um, I couldn't bring myself to being a yellow screamer. It just was not. It was not in my soul, and I just I can remember a number of times that parents would say to me, "Why didn't you get along with that referee?" or something like that. I said, "I don't have the time to worry about the referee. He's learning the sport too. I've got to concentrate on the guys in the pool and what they're doing and make sure they have a good time and that they learn something." I said, screaming at the kids didn't. It always turned me off when a coach would scream at me as an athlete. His point was never. It never seemed to be in my head. All I remember is him yelling at me. So I guess I had rejected it as a student, and then just felt that it wasn't my style. Was it? I enjoyed just focusing on the guys that I had and what I was trying to do and how I was going to improve them at the sport and in life. And Charlie Sylvia had the greatest part of that because he understood I was a kid from New York and sort of a wise guy and obnoxious wrestler and that kind of thing. But I can remember him reprimanding me for doing something stupid, really just getting on my case. But he never did it by yelling and screaming. He just take me off on the side and say, this is not very smart attack on what you want to do and that kind of thing. And I always remembered that. I always appreciated it, and it stayed with me and formed how I was going to coach. There was absolutely no question about it. He had such good. I remember as a freshman, I was walking back from downtown Springfield to the college, um, and in the winter, and I had regular shoes on. It's snowing out, and regular shoes and a light jacket and that kind of thing. And he drives by, and he stops, tells me to get in the car, drives me to my dorm, and then basically lambastes me. He went after me, not yelling and screaming, but you can't be this stupid. If you're going to be an athlete, you got to take care of yourself. You got to wear a jacket. You got to wear boots. You got to get a hat. I mean, I can remember that. I can remember the whole thing and how he did it, his whole approach to me and the way he treated me about that. Obviously it's lasted with me for some time. So yeah, so there's part of the,
We're all the
there are a
we're all
lot of
the
stories.
beneficiaries of that. So thanks to Charlie.
Well, people like you are unusual people. You appreciate that, and that obviously goes both ways. From my standpoint, that's why I stayed there, because people like you kept on coming through, and I was able to coach them and teach them something, and have them go off, and then look what you have a screen and asking me questions like this. It just is. You're still amazing.
So if I could continue Monty's line of question. So, I mean, you might be wondering why I'm here because I'm not a swimmer, but you coached spring track in '92, and you even admitted you're like, I don't know anything about track, but I would still put you as probably the best coach I ever had in running, and I did run through college, so it's certainly like an innate talent that you have. And if I go back to your earlier point about rich kids and delinquents in prep schools, I was definitely the latter. But how were you able to like convince adolescents to go on your road shows on these Sundays? Like, I mean, there's a certain level of evangelism that's just innate to you. Is that always been the case, or did you just
That
always run in the?
I think well, you exemplify what the students then were, even though you're older now. You exemplify what they were then, and their willingness to understand. I had already started the girls swimming program, and they saw that evolve, so they knew, they probably just going to do something with water polo. I think they probably, I would guess, if we had someone from the class of 72, 73 right in there where we were doing our road shows, would support the fact that I would ask him, would you like to put your Sunday out and learn something about the sport and see where we can go, and then teach some others. And they were all willing to do that. They just did it because that was it. And Joe, I want to tell you that probably the greatest influence outside of swimming water polo was Ralph Loveson. And when I came to Exeter, he was the track coach. He did all 3 seasons, and he was such an incredible guy. And he would teach me. He would take me aside and teach me each of the things that he wanted me to do, um, all the time. And he had so much knowledge about every single event, and he had a knack of being able to get me prepared to do some basics in that particular activity. And what happened was, I started out in the long jump and high jump were 2 events that he had me start when I first started in '63. And he gave me manuals and books and told me what I could do to learn more about the activities that I loved learning. I just loved learning something new and had a blast with it and tried to make the best of it. And I enjoyed working with him and the other coaching staff that was there. And then, I can remember him say, "Hey, okay, I need to have you work with the middle distance runners," at a time where one of the guys who was coaching left the Exeter. He'd say, "Okay, what do I do?" And he took me aside again and, gave me all kinds of information. Would come by during the day, while we were at practice, and he'd say, "I know she's doing this, change it just a little bit this way," and that kind of thing. So he was a fun guy to learn from. Even in the 70s and 80s when he was, in the 80s, Hillary Coder carried him alone. Now it's Ari Hall, is the name now. And she continued that. She continued helping me learn how to do the triple jump. And she actually had me working with Paul Walters one year, which blew my mind completely. But yeah, so there have been a lot of influences, in terms of my growth and mentorship coming through. With just really that's been a fun part. I like learning. I still like learning. I like watching. I'm not very happy with water polo and the rules that they're going with right at the moment. Making a big mistake. I think they're going to lose the game.
Coach, if I could, you talked about people who influence you. I'm just, in all honesty, and I suspect I might not be the only person that feels this way on this call, but if I were to put like a Mount Rushmore, people who've had the biggest influence on my life outside of my immediate family, of course, because my mom and sister are watching, you would definitely be up there. You might be the George Washington on that Mount Rushmore, in all honesty. So thank you for that, of course. It's interesting. I was actually, leading up to this podcast, it kind of forced you to think about your high school years. And I seem to have like strong individual memories about water polo, but like team memories were actually about swimming. And I was thinking about like slaying the dragon of Deerfield. Like that actually, when I think about so here's my question to you. So when you look back at like the late 80s, early 90s, like what are some kind of distinct memories about your coaching career, either in water polo or swimming, kind of resonate with you? Because for some reason I kept on thinking about beating Deerfield and like what a big deal that was, at least during our times. I think they were like always winning the championship until we defeated them. And I don't forget whether my lower or upper year, but that was pretty amazing.
One of the best ones was 70 or 71, 72, right in there. Deerfield had dominated. They had something like 11 or 12 New England championships in a row, and they were destined to win that one that I'm going to talk about. Um, and I can remember we had a pretty good team. We were doing a pretty good job, and in terms of our dual meets and that kind of thing. We actually lost to Deerfield in our dual meet against them, so that I was a little bit concerned about that. But I can remember, if you can visualize the pool, we were always sort of on the far side, the window side, on the bleachers at the starting end of the pool. You knew that there was that corridor that went past the stands that went to the custodial room. Do you remember that hallway there? There was a bench, tile bench that went along. And I can remember it was right at the end of the diving going into the butterfly. And I looked up and over at the thing, and we had done well in the diving, and said, "Team." And I turned around and faced them, and I said, "Look over my shoulder. Look at those guys. They're huddled over the Deerfield guys. You put it on a bathing suit for the 100 fly, and we're going to kick them." And they said, "We got scared because we're going to go a couple of points ahead right now after the diving." And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. We just dominated the second half of the championships and won for the first championship and broke their record as a championship. So that's probably one of the neatest turning moments and that sort of thing.
Coach, was that
In water polo, we were playing at Northfield Mount Herman pool, and it was timeout, and we were down 2 goals. And Terry Lowe, Greenwich coach, yes, everyone knows him. He was going berserk. He was yelling and screaming at the team as we walked out into the shower rooms, and I huddled the guys. I said, they're scared. You can win this game. Look at him. He is going berserk. He's not going to be able to coach. And sure enough, we came back and knocked off the 2 points and won by 2 points. And it just was, that's another one of those grab your moments when you notice what's going to happen, and you can feel it in your body. And it's just, so there are two key things, one in each sport.
Was that
That did
was
that
that
help,
first
Chris?
Interschols coach 71 or 91? Your first Interschols swimming championship.
That was either 71 or
Okay.
72. I don't remember which. Yeah, I don't remember which. And then we went on a roll. It's the same thing that happened there against Andover. Andover had beaten us. Before I got there, had beaten us 5 or 6 years in a row. And then my first 7 years there, they beat me each year. And then I knew we had a chance. And it's sort of the same thing that happened at that Interschols against Deerfield. It was a dual meet against Andover. And I just knew it was going to happen. We upset them, and we went on for, I think, 35 minutes straight wins against Andover. Does that answer, Chris?
Yeah. Again, I just appreciate hearing the memories from you, and again, bring back to the Mount Rushmore again. Just want to thank you for everything, Coach. You've been a terrific influence in all of our lives. So, thank you.
Well, it's both ways. I just I got off the phone with Vivek, and it happened to be Tim after that. But we got off the phone, and Kathy asked me what was that all about, and I told her, and she just wide-eyed. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "This is the first one. This is so cool. I can't believe it. I've been thinking about it every day, just anticipating this opportunity to talk with all you guys and just answer questions and share and that kind of thing. And I would encourage you to um, uh, drop me a note and let me know more about your lives. And I mean, you've taken up all the time and to go through everyone here. And I sure love to have an update on what you guys are doing, where you're living, your families and your occupation and that sort of thing, because certainly as my career has been just absolutely terrific. I doubt very much that you guys work in the same exact place as your wife, but I did for the winter season. We were in the same classroom, side by side, coaching swimming and that kind of thing. And that co-education is the reason we met. And as I sort of implied, I didn't say it, I implied that, it suggested that they created co-education. They better get someone to do the swimming. And the first time we ever met was on the deck of the pool when she was being interviewed, and the AD and the dean of faculty said, "This is Roger Nekton, who started the girls swimming pool, and knows what you're going to have to be doing. Do you have any questions for him?" And there I am coaching girls and boys in the pool at the same time, and she had about 20 minutes of questions for me, and that was our first meeting.
Can I ask a question, Coach? Actually, if you don't mind telling us more about that, it's really interesting. We had Jack Herney on the podcast a couple months ago, and Jack Herney told us a lot about Exeter. I think he started in '68, and you started, and I didn't know this, but you started in '63, and so Exeter was a pretty different place in the '60s, and right.
Oh my gosh!
Right. So
yes,
he had
very
and
different.
So could you
But I obviously loved it at that time. I loved it at that time. So that's not it. But yeah, he and I both married.
You both married Exonian faculty.
And we had our diffs when who's going to get more time in the pool, or that kind of thing. But we had it was always a good time. There are several funny stories about that. One was in 79, and our Kathy was pregnant, and she 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 went to say that she needed a maternity leave. They had no maternity leave program. She was the first one to attack that, and so they had to make up something on the spur of the moment. And a few months, a little while later, the AD is going crazy trying to find someone to do the girls lacrosse because it was going to be a spring sabbatical, and so the AD called me in there in the winter because any women's lacrosse coach was already into some school. There just weren't a plethora of them, and he said, "Roger, you are going to coach girls lacrosse this spring." I said, "Ted, I can't do that." I said, "I don't even know anything about boys lacrosse, much as girls lacrosse, and I love my coaching of track." I said, "I don't want to do that." He says, "Go to clinics, get books, send me the bill, but that's what you're out of track for at least 1 year." And then I coached girls varsity lacrosse, and Kathy always says they lost one game because you were the coach. It would have been undefeated otherwise. She keeps throwing that at me all the time.
But if you would tell us a little more about that life that you led. So did you live in a dorm like most faculty members in the 60s and 70s? And did you have that experience?
When she came, she was in other dorms and that kind of thing. And then they didn't have. We were the first married couple. People were married, but the males is all male faculty at that time before coeducation, and so the wives were in other areas. They may be teaching, but they'd be teaching at the high school or whatever, grade school. So they had no plans for that. So they had to figure out what to do, and it evolved. Both of us. I was already in the fading marriage early in the 60s, and she had a tough time right away, right almost when she took the job at Exeter. So when we got married, they had to figure out what to do about that. And what do you do about child care, everything else? So a whole bunch of stuff evolved during that, and Kathy became very influential. I mean, she became athletic director for 5 years or something like that, and so she was my boss at home and boss at work.
I love it. I love that. But Coach, did you live in a dorm in the 60s and in the 70s before you were married?
I lived. Let's see, my very first year, I was the youngest faculty member by maybe 10, 12 years. So everyone was there. They were Truexonian faculty. And for most of them, I was like a little toy. I was this young kid who coming onto the faculty, first job, and they, I want to show you something about this, and I want to show you something about the art gallery, this kind of thing, just trying to get me going. So that was fun at that point. And so then my first year that I was in, well, my first year I was actually in a house across from the administration building, and I had to do weekends here and there in dorms when people went off to clinics or something like that, or had family problems or whatever. I had to step in for a weekend and live in their apartment or in a separate room if they had it. Oh, one of my first ones was 63. Obviously, was in November. I was put in. Oh, what dorm? It was in the quad. It was to the right of Bancroft. What was that? Lamont?
Of Bancroft would be Webster probably, or when
Lamont and Lamont. Anyway, I was put in there for the weekend, and it was the weekend that Kennedy was assassinated. And I was coaching on that Friday. I was coaching in our little pool, a 4-lane, 25-yard pool that we had originally. The head trainer came running into the pool and says, "Kennedy's been shot, and it's going crazy right now." I said, "Come on, no way. I wouldn't believe him." And he, no, that's happened. Sure enough, that's what happened. And here I am in this dorm, trying to be solemn about the whole thing and try to keep up and give information to the kids in the dorm about what was going on and that kind of thing. And okay, so I finally settled the dorm down around 10 o'clock, 10:30, got that going. All of a sudden, at about 2 a.m., all hell breaks loose. They're out playing hall soccer, and having all kinds of. I'm going from the third floor down. You get down to the common room now. Down there, everybody down in the common room. And I'm thinking, what the heck am I going to say to these guys? What am I going to say at this point where the assassination happened? I really don't even remember that meeting with the students, but um, we came, we went away and everybody paid attention. And I must have said something that was worthwhile. So they went back to their rooms and I didn't hear from them till the next day. So that went okay. But that was one of my first dorm duties. And then went up to Peabody Hall. Oh, actually, no, the year before that, interim between that first year and second year, I took a half year at Night House and a half year at what was the new dorm then? Modern dorm over
Probably Main Street or something.
over by the dining hall.
Or McConnell.
McConnell?
I can't remember. Anyway, I had to do a half year at each place because the guys were on sabbatical, so we were in a half year, not a trimester. We were in a dual master. So I did half year at each of those. And then I went to Peabody Hall with Andre Venet. Was he around when you guys? French teacher. Okay. I was in that dorm for 3 or 4 years, I guess. And then I had really liked my half year stint at Night House. I really enjoyed that. So I sort of put my bid in for Night House if it ever came available. And it did. And that's where I spent the rest of my time, Night House, until I moved out. And Kathy and I, after we got married, we bought a house in Northampton, which is about 9 miles off campus. And we traveled back and forth at that point. But yeah, I did. Yeah, Night House was fun. That was a great place to be.
Hey, Coach. First of all, thank you. Like everybody else has said, you just had such a profound impact on our lives. And more importantly, you look fantastic. You look physically and cognitively like you stepped off the pool in 92. So I don't know what your secrets to longevity are, but I think we are now at the same age you were when we graduated, pretty close, all of us in our early 50s. So what coaching would you give us to live the next 30 years of our lives to end up looking and feeling as good as you are?
Have a fantastic wife. That's number
Did you say
one.
life or wife?
Well, both. I'll do that. But I think probably keep testing yourself, trying to learn new things, and have an open mind about what's out there. Don't sell yourself short. You'll find out you can do things that you didn't think you could do. That I told you, half of being at the right place at the right time is part of it, but also making your way through that kind of thing and take advantage of opportunities that come. Don't close a door because you think you're old enough and you've done that before or something like that. Don't close the door. Keep it open and give yourself a chance to think about that and imagine yourself doing that. But I think most importantly is share your life with your wife. Make sure she has what her passion is. Kathy has always had horses as a passion, and she just loves it. And she left already for a horse show while we were sitting here. But you've got to do that and have shared joy, either in your children or in the things that you do together. But the more you can share together, the happier your life will be. I guarantee it. It has made a major difference. It's been 46 for us, so it's a neat opportunity. I guess for me, it's been just things like this and sharing with people and trying to meet new people and enjoy the kinds of things. I am not a church person at all. Only when we only started going to church, Kathy's always been because her dad was a Methodist minister, so she's always been involved. And the only reason I went and started going to church was in the late 70s when we had children. We started having children. And I said, okay, I've got to set a pattern on this. And so we joined a church that close by. We tried a couple of different ones, and then finally we settled on one. And so we were involved in one that was close to our house, sort of almost halfway between our house and the school, and had a good life there, and did all kinds of things. I got myself involved in all kinds of committees, and I did. I ended up doing a selective cutting and conservation easement for the church, which then turned out we did it for our 42-acre horse farm. So learning about all that just kept my mind. I was still coaching and teaching, but I had all that on my plate besides. So you gotta find the things that was nice because it kept me involved with the kids and church, and they have gone their own way. They don't they're more like I was than my wife in terms of church, that kind of thing. Of course, we lost our daughter in the mid, so and that was terrible. I guess that's the main thing is to keep your options open and don't get so. I It's funny I can say that um, because I spent 45 years in the same exact job, but it hadn't been. I mean, I had 7 years of soccer, swimming, diving, track and field, a little bit of lacrosse. I even coached a little bit of squash. My life was always going with something new, little small things along the way. And I think that's important for any of you to do, but enjoy it with a partner.
Coach, it's one of the abiding memories I have, and I mentioned it earlier, just your enthusiasm for life is infectious, and I think has done you a great service, and it's something you've managed to leverage to influence countless lives.
Okay.
For me, that is, I think, probably the most important thing that I will take away from today. And it seems like we are, things are starting to wind down. I think we're probably at a good place to wrap the podcast. Or any last minute questions, but it is, Vivek, this is all due to you. And I'm looking to my left because on my two monitors here down in the bottom left. So, thank you so much for doing this, Coach. Thank you so much for.
Okay. Well, if as I asked you, if there's anyone that wants to do a little update, so I know something about you guys, it's Nekton, Nekton, at gmail.com. So it's a really basic Nekton. Nekton, like what?
Like plankton.
Like plankton.
Yeah.
Swimming organisms of the deep sea. Much like plankton, but plankton go with the currents, Nekton propel themselves. And that therein is, you can look it up in a dictionary. Therein is why I'm a swimming coach.
And you have, I think I'm sure that everyone listening would agree that you have propelled our lives in ways that I think we never anticipated and are profoundly grateful for. So thank you.
I thank you back. Goes both ways, really. Thank you
Everyone
for my
else,
life.
this is incredible to see you. Yeah, Vivek, thank you. You got to do this.
So much fun. So much fun.
Well, it's my
Thanks.
pleasure. I'm
Great
very
to see
happy.
everyone.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you,
please
Vivek.
give my
Thanks,
life-
Coach.
Really excited
Thanks,
this
Coach.
worked
Thanks,
out.
Coach. Great
Thanks,
to see you.
everybody.
All
Thanks,
Good to see
everybody.
everyone.
Amen.
All right. Great to see you all. Take care. See you next time.
All right.
Thanks so much, Coach. You're the best. We love you.
Glad
Thanks,
to.
Vivek.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All the best.